This is Will Spencer from the Renaissance of Men here for the New 21 Report. I'm sitting here with Eric Carroll. Eric, thanks for being here with me today.
Hey, Will, thank you so much, man.
So what was the title of your talk today?
So I did something I don't normally do. I talked a little bit about my personal story.
Okay.
I've been doing the podcast for about 2 years now. Dad Talk Today. A lot of people don't know why I got into it.
Yeah.
I've experienced it, and I'm experiencing it now. It's been about 3 years since I've seen my daughter.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So I wanted these men to hear a little bit about what that journey was like. One thing that I've realized, that I didn't know before is we tend to think that our cases, nobody else is going through it, or nobody can understand what it is I'm going through. Almost everybody's case is exactly the same.
Wow.
A few details might be switched around with some of the names, but the tricks and some of the obstacles that they're having to overcome are very similar. Mm-hmm. And I think men are afraid to speak. They've been told, just man up, get over it, put on your panties. I see that kind of stuff inside the community all the time. It ticks me off. But when they hear other men speak, hey, I've been going through these issues. This is what I've been experiencing. You've been through that too? When we start fostering a community where people feel safe to come with like-minded individuals. So just trying to kind of tell people what was going on with that and encourage them to speak up and use their voice.
How did you find that the audience of men received the things that you were saying? Were they receptive? Were they like, oh my gosh, you're telling my story too?
Yeah, really, really good. A good bit of the fathers, well, I say fathers, a good bit of the men that I spoke to after the conference that came up to me speaking are men that are not fathers yet. They were just like, hey, look, I'm about to get into a marriage, or I've been wanting to do this, and I've been hearing all these different battles. What would you suggest for me to do to keep myself out of this and some of that? So, those are really a lot of the people that we need to be reaching, because once you're going through it, it's already too late. If we can reach our men and kind of tell them some of the obstacles that they could face later on, prevention is better than the cure.
Mm-hmm. You find that they get that, like, oh yeah, no, I can. You give them actionable intelligence.
Yeah, and I think for the most part, most of these guys, they know somebody that's been through it, right, even if they haven't been through it themselves. And I think that's why you're seeing a lot of them not wanting to get into relationships.
Yeah,
we see the MGTOW community. I know. I understand why men are going their own way.
Yep.
When you see what you can get into in the family law battle and how your kids are used as a weapon. Marriage is at a very big decline right now. Mm-hmm. Divorce is at the lowest it's ever been. And people have been celebrating that, hey, man, what it is single parenthood is on the rise. Mm-hmm. Nobody's getting married anymore because they know what happens when you let the government get involved, right? So bringing that awareness out and letting them know, be careful because the consequences can be severe.
How did it feel getting up on stage and kind of sharing your personal side of the story? It sounds like a big risk.
It's scary.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's scary. I never inspired to be a podcaster. I hate public speaking. It's just not my thing. But I realized early on, I went through these things for a reason. I can sit there and take it, and I can become another statistic, or I can turn that pain into purpose. And what I want to do is turn that pain into purpose and get out there and encourage these guys. Look, man, you're not alone. A lot of us are facing these issues, but when you're going through these dark moments, I truly believe you might not even know it. That's where you're finding your calling. A lot of times when you're in the heat of the moment, or you're in that fire right there, you're being molded for something that you might not even know is coming. So I think one of the most common questions we get asked is how do I get in here? How do I get involved? Well, sometimes I can't tell you that because I don't know where your talents is or how you're going to get involved. But when that moment hits and you know what it is you want to do and how you want to get involved, I think it's sometimes you just got to wait for that right moment.
Can you describe when that moment happened to you?
Yeah. So when I was going through this, I was a single father, and I had just got out of a divorce, got into a new relationship, and it was a disaster. I started talking to a family law attorney. The first one I went to charged me $400 to consult with him for an hour. His advice to me afterwards was, you're a dad, you're not going to win in court, it's cheaper to keep her, and you need to go get back with her. I'm like, yeah, that's not happening.
Yeah.
So I go to the next attorney. Man, you got one of the greatest cases I ever heard. We can get you whatever it is you want. I need $10,000 in retainer to get started. Wow. And it was at that time I started seeing what family court was about, and I started going back to all those issues that I've been through. I started reaching out to people in the community, telling them about my case, and I found out there's more like-minded people that have been through these same situations than I ever knew. But they just needed to hear that somebody else was going through it too. And that's when, I kind of got the idea of the podcast, and all that pain that I had experienced in the past through the divorce, through the alienation and everything. There was days that I just didn't want to wake up. It's like, man, I don't want to do this. God, why did you create me for this? But now when I'm sitting here speaking to these men, I say, I get it now. I was going through it for a reason.
What was it like when you sat down to do your first podcast and kind of start putting all these things into action?
Absolutely horrifying. Yeah. I mean, having to sit there on the screen, not knowing how it's going to be taken. I think the worst evaluator of yourself is yourself. So you're always going to be harder on yourself, second guessing yourself. I didn't know anything about cameras. I didn't know anything about live streaming or anything. So learning that process was intimidating. But over time, you just keep working at it and you learn. Yeah.
So you said you haven't seen your daughter in 3 years. Talk a little bit about that. That's so sorry.
Yeah, it's a rough one. So I mean, I've got custody of my other 3 daughters. I got 4 daughters total. Okay. And it was that one case because I couldn't afford to go through the system. She's got the upper hand. Unfortunately, I think that's the case for many of these men. We hit we get a lot of the moms too crowd, and they show up and try to say, hey, this is happening to moms too. This isn't a gender issue. And I say, 82.5% of the time, dad's going to be without custody of his kids. And he is sitting in that chair for nothing more than just being a man. That's the sad thing about this. We don't have any legislation that protects equality for these men in the family courts. So I'm hoping that'll change. We're starting to see people a little bit more receptive than they were in the very beginning. We still got a long way to go.
Have you gotten a chance to interact with some of the other speakers here at the convention?
I have. Which Jeff Younger, he's one that's been on the podcast several times. He came on the show. He's got the gag order. He's not even supposed to be talking about it. And they brought our podcast into his court case and everything. But talked to Jesse Lee Peterson. I really enjoyed his talk earlier. And Carnell's a good friend of mine, a paternity fraud expert. But, it's neat just to see all these other speakers and see the different angles, I've learned a lot over the weekend, I really have.
Who's another, some of the speakers are in this field of paternity fraud and some of the divorce. So have you spoken to any of the speakers who might have been unfamiliar to you before showing up? Like some of the new guys in the manosphere, maybe? Yeah, so I think Jesse was about the only one I've gotten to speak to. As I know most of these guys that are here, but just sitting there and listening to him talking about forgiving your mother and all the other stuff, like I've never really thought about it that way. I think that's the good thing about coming to these and hearing the different angles that people bring to it, because I get so consumed with father's rights that I don't get to hear it just from like the manosphere. I'm still kind of new to what's going on in the manosphere, but I get it when I hear it, and I needed to start tuning in a little bit more. What have been your impressions of the men the attendees? Have you gotten to spend time with them outside of the men who came to your talk?
Every one of these men seem like very good men. They're just, a lot of them are wanting to start families, but they don't know where, or they're skeptical of what's going to happen, and they're going to end up like somebody like me talking about what I am. And that's the sad thing about it. Everybody wants love. Everybody wants to have a family, and maybe not everybody. For the most part, I think most of us do. And just knowing that they're up against these obstacles, that's the sad thing about it. But for the most part, we talked to people all across the country that came to this event, and really, gives you a lot of hope. There's some guys out there that are really starting to pay attention and making sure that they're covering themselves.
Some members of the public, or speakers, or political leaders, or
just the general attendees.
General attendees, yeah.
Like last night, we was sitting there eating supper. I was talking to a guy. He was, he's wanting to become a father now. Was just talking about some of the different precautions that he's wanting to take and everything. And it was like, it's good hearing that, because I'm a father of 4 daughters. I couldn't have a son. So I get claimed all the time, like, you hate moms, or you talk down on moms. It's like, couldn't be further from the truth. I got these 4 daughters. I hope that, they're going to be beautiful mothers one day, and I'm going to try to guide them as I can. but I realize what's going on with our boys and what's going on with our men. Mm-hmm. And being able to step outside of that and speak, I don't think that boys get enough focus. Girls are told from the time they're born, like how they should be treated by a man. Mm-hmm. But we rarely go and tell our men, our boys, how they should be treated by a woman.
Right.
And that's really where I think a lot of the problem is.
Now, you know that there's the 22 conventions going on at the same time, which is a conference for Make Women Great Again is the tagline. Have you gotten to interact with any of the female attendees or speakers even?
I got to sit in one presentation, and that was pretty cool. It was actually when Anthony was speaking.
Okay.
And I saw one of the attendees, I think they got a little hot about what was going on.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That's the sad thing about it. In the culture that we live in right now, it's so polarized, and people are so easily triggered, and we've left all conversation, completely off the table. Mm-hmm. To be able to speak and listen to what that person says rather than react. But, just watching how that reaction went and shows you how strong that feminist narrative is right there, and push them back at it, and how easily someone can be gaslit when they hear something opposite of what they would truly be thinking about, But that was pretty neat.
Have you gotten to interact with some of the other women there, or get a sense of the event outside of that? Or
no, I haven't. No, I haven't got to. Now, Melissa Isaac, I know she spoke on there at the same time that I was speaking over here on this stage.
Sure, yeah.
She's a savage. Mm-hmm. She's a savage. I'll probably have to go back and watch that one. But I need to get out there and interact with people a little bit more. But from what I've seen, just an amazing event so far. People that's wanting to raise awareness.
When you started speaking out about these issues, did you expect anger, hate, accusations, blame, or was it a surprise to you?
Yes and no. I expected it to come from the ones that are kind of profiting off of the system, or that it kind of goes in their favor. I didn't expect it to come from the same side of the aisle. That's what's really starting to bother me now. As bad as the feminists and stuff can be, I see more men being critical of other men more than anything. And I guess that's the way they've been accustomed, or they've been trained, and that really hurts me, because some of these guys are going through some of the worst challenges in their life, and they need somewhere to come and vent, and we're just completely turning them away. But that's probably been one of the main things. And this issue, I do not believe has hit the mainstream yet when it comes to men's rights, when it comes to fathers' rights. And as it starts to gain steam, I tell people, you got to be careful, because you can do a million things right. You do one thing wrong, that's what you're going to be remembered for. They would love nothing more than to find one little thing that they could sit here and just cancel out everything that we talked about this past weekend. Mm-hmm. And that's just the reality, and the way that the media and everything's set up right now. It'd be so easy to do and put it past them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of disappointing to feel like, I expect to go to war and to deal with the opposing side coming at me, but behind my own, what I would presume to be friendly lines, it's so unfortunate, but maybe it's because the issue hasn't hit the mainstream yet that many men aren't aware of it.
I don't know if it's that, I don't know if what I see, men want to be leaders. Men want to be leaders, and we have several different organizations going on, but I think if they can't be the spotlight, then it's like you can't see them unifying, and that's the hard part about it, because there's so many of us that are going through this. Feminists, most of them can't even stand to look at each other, but if they get behind a cause together, they'll fill those streets out there. I mean, completely fill them. And that's one thing that I believe, like the men's rights movement, fathers' rights movement, really need to take a page out of their book. We need to come together. We need to be able to organize. I mean, we got one of the biggest issues, I think, of this generation, and it should be treated the same way. But I think that can kind of get in the way sometimes, the egos, some people wanting the spotlight and stuff like that. And I think that's where a lot of the criticisms and stuff come to.
Criticisms about the men's rights movement in general, like the egos involved?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How do you see bringing men together as a larger question? Because we're here at a conference where men are coming together, and it seems to be working okay, but obviously, egos aren't necessarily involved in the same way. How do you help bring men together? Or what are some of your tips for doing that?
I think, again, just, trying to provide that positive community where they know what's going on, but then again, reaching them. It's media, like what Anthony's doing, and what you guys are doing right here, letting them know that there is a community out there. Most of them don't know. Mm-hmm. Largely it goes not represented, in the mainstream, and the more that we can sit there and get that awareness out and let them know about resources and places that they can learn, like 21 Studios Dad talked today, I think you'll see that really start to catch some steam.
Can you contextualize sort of the scale of the problem? You said the issue hasn't hit the mainstream. I'm aware that the divorce industry is a huge deal, but for some of the men, even women who are watching who may not have a good sense of what's going on, can you help provide some statistics or a picture to get like just how big of a problem this is?
Family law is a $60 billion a year industry.
Whoa.
That is more money than all of the other courts combined.
I had no idea. Okay, wow. Continue.
60 billion. 82.5% of the time dad will be without custody. There is other statistics. I just found out, we reported on this last month. The new domestic violence statistics came out. Domestic violence happened last year to 3.5 million women versus 4.2 million men.
That's such a huge
But you
deal.
never see him on a billboard. You're never going to see a man's domestic violence shelter. You don't see that because he's not looked at as a victim. He can't be a victim of that. And if he does speak, they try to cancel that out to see what happened with Johnny Depp. It was a big deal when they thought he had hit her, but when they found out it was her that hit him, it's not really that big of a deal. This should be alarming. This could be your son. This could be your grandson. It might not happen in this generation, but it's going to affect somebody in some way. And I think you're going to see groups like MGTOW and other stuff just continue to get bigger because men aren't going to want to get married. If they don't want to get married and they don't want to, create life, then we're kind of losing ourselves here. At some point in time, we got to say, hey, there's a problem. Let's do something about this.
So you talked about, sometimes the fire is coming from the friendly side,
Yeah.
Especially out in the political realm. You come here, doesn't really seem to be the case. You find a lot of sympathetic ears.
Yeah. And that's it. And that's the good thing, having people that you can come together and talk to. When you get this message out there, you got to realize people are easily triggered. They hear something that completely challenges their morals and their beliefs. Right now, I think social media has got a lot to do with that.
Sure.
I think that the news has a lot to do with that. We talk about our differences more than the things in finding common ground. Right now, between moms and dads, there should be some common ground. Right now, with that the marriage rate that's starting to fall, single parents are on the rise. Something's going on. There's room for conversation here, and but from what I've seen, here at this event, man, this has been amazing seeing these guys come together and talk about the same values. And, yeah, I love it.
You gonna be sticking around for a while?
Yeah, I'm going to be here until tomorrow morning. I got to get on back. I got an event coming up next week. We got to hit the road again, but I'm looking forward to it.
Can you say maybe in your short time here what you've kind of gotten out of the experience here? Sounds like you already said some of it.
Yeah, just seeing that there's more issues that are outside that of my own. So again, I'm stuck in that father's rights, equal shared parenting world, but there's so much more that's going on between that, and sometimes I need to step outside and hear that, and hearing some of this from these other men and what they're going through, it's definitely made me inspired to get out there and try to dig a little bit more into what's going on.
That's excellent. Well, I'm really grateful you're here, and I'm really grateful for your mission to wake men up to these challenges. And I'm not personally a father yet, but I'm aware of the scale of the problem, and I appreciate your contribution to making it better. So thanks so much, Eric.
So you're going to get a prenup, right?
I got to get a girlfriend first, and then we'll start thinking about that.
There you go.
Yeah, is that the guideline? Get a prenup?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I've heard different things about it, but it's not something that's really been on my mind at the moment. If you have more to share on that, please.
Well, I'm not saying it's going to hold up in court, but at least make sure you get one if you do.
Yeah, establish the boundary, right?
Prevention's better than the cure.
Yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
All right, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This is Will Spencer from the Renaissance of Men here with the new 21 Report and Eric Carroll. Thanks so much.